point of the matter is that I think what they did well here that a lot of video game adaptations to screen fail to do is be able to introduce this world to people that are not necessarily familiar with it in a very easy way.
So this was the other day, I downloaded the demo. I think I maybe tried it for like 10-15 minutes. I was like, I don't like any of these controls. This is weird. And I'm like, I would buy it, I would play it for like 20 minutes, get frustrated, and probably just never play it again. So I'm just like, nah. You tip on a service rendered, not a product bought.
Yeah, that's true.
So you would tip your hairdresser if you had hair. Sorry.
Alex, how are you feeling this fine morning?
Sleepy.
Oh, good. Maybe it's night where you are. Or
middle of your day, it's my night now.
That's right, exactly. We're like on other sides of the planet, so...
Absolutely.
Yeah, you don't know what location I'm in. I'm gonna like put an image of like Sydney Opera House behind me so they can like...
There's a polar bear.
There's a polar bear, just put polar bear back there, that works too. Great.
Perfect.
Nice. Oh, hey, so from wherever you are at right now, welcome to another episode of Total Pebble Knockdown. I'm Nathan.
And I am Alex.
And today on the show, we are talking about stuff. Aren't you excited?
That's so descriptive.
Yeah, that's right. I need a script doctor for that. Could you elaborate on the idea of stuff? Yeah, sure. We're going to do that right now. I wanted to talk to you about Fallout.
Cool. I've played a Fallout game or two.
I have played, like, every Fallout game, I think, at this point.
That's fair.
And
I think I've played 3 New Vegas and then Fallout 4. So,
okay.
Or 1 or 2.
Those are the big ones. Those are the big ones. I tried playing the first 2, but boy, on modern systems, it is very tricky to do so. I think you might need mods just to make sense of the interface, if nothing else.
Probably.
And I did, twice, try to play Fallout 76.
You know,
Anyway.
that recently had a free trial period.
Mm-hmm.
And I almost thought about doing it because I do like MMOs, but I didn't pull that trigger.
You saw me play it, and you thought, yeah.
Yeah.
We're actually not talking so much about the games today. Because I wanted to talk to you about the TV series that they did.
Oh yeah,
recently
they
over
did
at
do
Amazon.
a TV series, didn't we?
We did, indeed. Amazon, of all folks, put out Fallout, the TV series. I'm not going to lie to you, when I first saw the announcement, having been hurt before, I was kind of skeptical, honestly, of what they were going to do.
So show me on the Amazon where it hurt you.
Yes, exactly. Show me on the adaptation where it hurt me. And I was a little skeptical of what it was going to be, because I figured that Fallout was going to be very difficult to adapt to television, because there's a lot of lore and there's a lot of intricacy in it.
I feel like the people who are going to be watching a Fallout show are people who are fans of Fallout.
Yeah, but the thing about it is that I always end up watching with people that have no frame of reference for the games.
Fair.
So I'm always kind of curious as to who is going to understand what's going on, and if they're going to be able to make it make sense for people who are absorbing a new kind of genre, like a new kind of version of it. Because, I don't know if you're aware, video game to, like, TV or movie adaptations have had kind of a checkered history in the past.
Yeah.
And
it's almost the same history that anime to television, like real person television, has had.
Yeah, to the live action, or how comic books getting adapted to the screen was tricky when it first happened back in the 80s and 90s. And the reason is very simple, is that when you create any kind of piece of art, it is created for the medium that it is in. So you create a video game, it is meant to be an interactive medium, and if you were to move it to anything else, it's not going to be that. You know, you don't paint music, and, you know, you don't write songs in book form. You know, they're different kinds of medium for art forms. And so I wasn't coming in with huge high hopes for it, but I knew I was going to watch it because it's Fallout, so obviously I'm going to. I'm going to say it right now. The Fallout TV series is better than it has any right to be. It was really surprising that they did as good a job as they did. And I think the reason why is that they focus in on essentially 4 main characters, and those 4 characters really introduce you to the overall experience and the factions of the Fallout universe. First of all is the Ghoul, and the Ghoul is great because first of all, it's Walton Goggins, so you've got to enjoy that. You've played Fallout 4. You have to think of the Ghoul story as sort of similar to your Vault 111 survivor in Fallout 4, because his story takes place before the bombs fall, and then when you first meet him is actually at the point in that past where the bombs fall. So immediately you're taken to what it was like before Fallout, and then eventually what it's like as him as a ghoul 200 years down into the future. And so he's sort of your introductory character, because a lot of people that are not familiar with the games would be looking at that saying, oh, this is what life was like before, and then in the first, 3 minutes, 4 minutes of the show, you see all the bombs start to fall down.
Yeah, it's essentially the opening to Fallout 4.
Yes, exactly. It is the opening to Fallout 4, and people trying to get to the Fallout shelters and everything like that. So immediately, people kind of get an idea, oh, this is what the main idea of Fallout is going to be. They kind of allude on the television.
Bombs fell, everyone died.
Exactly. They allude on the television, it's at, this birthday party, and they allude on the television about, Anchorage and all of this, and what's happening, and that we're on the verge of something terrible, and the fuel wars are going on. So you get that, and then it kind of skips forward to the present day of the show, and you're introduced to Lucy. Lucy is a Vault Dweller, and you start to see that there's a lot of parallels between her and what happened in Fallout 3, which is that you're in the Vault, you grow up in the Vault, and then something happens with your dad, and you have to go off and find your dad.
Great, so they're really just taking the openings for each of these games as their characters.
Many of these characters follow plot lines to many of the lead characters of the games.
So it doesn't sound like
similar.
they had to do a lot of creative heavy lifting on the characters' parts.
Well, except that in every single one of these cases, I feel like it is modified from the original. Like, for instance, for the Ghoul, you don't get cryogenically frozen and then wake up 200 years in the future. You're just the Ghoul. The Ghoul, it lives out in the wastelands for that 200 years in the irradiated waste. Lucy, her father doesn't just disappear one day. Raiders come and take him. And the overall reason why eventually gets more fleshed out. I won't get into spoiler territory, really, past, the first episode.
Spoiler, bombs fell.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with Fallout, the bombs fall. But I won't get into really many spoilers, except for the basic stuff that you're probably familiar with Fallout. But Lucy's whole quest line is what you normally experience if you're playing a Vault Dweller leaving. Which is basically, you're the Vault Dwellers, you have this can-do attitude about, the future is you. You're the ones that are going to...
she must have had a good vault.
You think so. They're under the impression that they're under, a seed vault. They're under the vaults that were supposed to work correctly. Well, actually, I'll tell you one thing that was interesting that was set up in the first one, where I was going, this vault that she's in, 33, is part of a tri-vault setup. So that Vault 33, 32, and 31 are all connected to each other, and they can move personnel between them. And so this is kind of like the setup. And immediately I was like, I have not seen that before. And immediately at that point I was like, oh, something's happening here. Something is going on here.
Illuminati
this is not
confirmed.
Yes, there is something going on here. But Lucy has to basically go out into the waste. So you're seeing from her perspective what happens with Vault Dwellers going out into the wasteland and discovering that, yeah, this place is hell and it's not fun, and all of your training in the vault is not going to prepare you the second you meet a Radroach. Her brother, Norman, stays in the vault, but starts to wonder what's going on with the vault. And so his storyline is the uncovering of what vault tech actually is and does. So when you're following him, you're starting to realize that all is not peachy and rosy in these vaults like they made it out to be. Which is also a very important thing to understand about Fallout. And then you meet Maximus, and Maximus is part of the Brotherhood of Steel.
Yeah, I could tell by his name.
Right.
That or he was part of the Legion.
Yeah, I know. It could have been either way. They did not introduce Legion in this. So that's probably for the better. Leave that till later. But Brotherhood and, like, New California Republic come into this. And he gets picked up by the Brotherhood after, like, his town is decimated. He's trying to make his mark in the Brotherhood. And then when rubber hits the road, kind of realizes that, you know, it's much more complicated what the Brotherhood is doing, and, like, what it means to be part of the Brotherhood, and if he even wants to be in there in the first place. So basically, by kind of giving these few different perspectives, I think it goes over the major themes of the show, or of the Fallout universe. The Ghoul is especially interesting, though, because you also follow him in the before times, when he was like a cowboy actor in Hollywood.
Oh, great.
And uncovering, like, what's going on, because he apparently was more familiar with, like, Vault Tech and all the other companies that were around at the time before the war.
As actors should be.
You know, it was like during the Red Scare, and so everyone's kind of paranoid, and he starts to uncover, whether he really wants to or not, that there's something going on, and maybe he shouldn't trust these people. And then you get to see the fallout, obviously, of it in the end, because he's very aware of what is going on in the here and now, far more than Lucy or Maximus would know. So it's good because you get a lot of characters that are good introductions for people that are not familiar with the series, where they can kind of relate to them, and go on their discovery of what is going on. You go with basically all four of these characters, you're going on a journey with them to uncover these specific storylines about the Wasteland and about Fallout and the lore of it. And that they try to keep it fairly simple without getting into too much heady detail. In general, they start with the basic framework. Lucy's trying to find her dad. The vault's in disarray after an attack. The Ghoul's trying to track down a bounty. So is the Brotherhood. So they're all sort of on very basic quest lines, and these intersect with each other. And they start to learn more about all the different factions. Of course, for people that are like me, who are familiar with the Fallout series, all these lovely parts where you just kind of go, ooh, it's that Leonardo DiCaprio thing from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where you're snapping at the screen like, hey, I know that thing. It's like, I did that on far more than one occasion.
Like, I know what that is.
Yes, it's like, hey, I understand that. I understand that reference, as Captain America would say. They mention areas and places and stuff about the war and stuff about the companies, and right up to the end, and I won't spoil the very last scene of the season, but it got me very excited for a season 2. Which I'll just say that right now.
Nuka-Cola.
They actually had Nuka-Cola, like, throughout the thing. There's Nuka-Cola boxes. Oh, I should have mentioned that dog meat shows up real early. You meet dog meat.
Okay.
So, dog meat.
Specifically dog meat.
Oh, yeah, they call him that in the thing.
Great. They couldn't have come up with a new character?
Dog meat's a classic.
Sure, but, like, he's specific to Fallout 4 and the lone, The Vault Dweller.
No. I think Dogmeat showed up in the original ones too, that were out in California. Yeah, they just called them that too. And also in 3. Also in 3, Dogmeat was in 3. He was in 3, it was in 4, and I think it was in the originals. Point of the matter is that I think what they did well here that a lot of video game adaptations to screen fail to do is be able to introduce this world to people that are not necessarily familiar with it in a very easy way, where it's understandable. Like, the motivations for the characters are very understandable if you're not familiar with Fallout at all. And if you're trying to figure out what's happening, it's almost like a little mystery for folks that are not familiar with it. Like, what is going on with the vaults? If you have no frame of reference of who Vault Tech is, or what any of these companies are, or what the vaults are, you'd be under the impression at the very beginning that, oh, these vaults seem like a nice way to repopulate the Earth and, avoid the fallout. Until things start to go wrong very early. And you go, I wonder what that's about. Until the very end, where, like, Norman really uncovers, like, oh, this is what's happening here. And, like, Lucy, when she goes to another vault later, goes, oh, this is kind of messed up. And still kind of thinks to herself, well, this can't be, like, my vault. And the Vault Dwellers in like, Vault 4 are kind of, like, going, oh, yeah, sure. Sure. Like, they already know that there's problems. But being able to just introduce the Brotherhood and eventually introduce, like, the NCR, because that's always a good conflict to set up at the beginning. What they are and what they're trying to achieve is a good introduction without getting too into everybody else that you'd want to get down the line. So, enough stuff that you can recognize it as a fan, easily accessible for people who are not familiar with it, and they do a good job of actually writing the characters so that they go on their own story arcs. They actually...
Well, that's important.
Yeah.
For sure.
Like Lucy goes from the beginning of the series to the end of the series being the Vault Dweller can-do attitude, I'm gonna go trek out into the wasteland and I'm gonna achieve everything, to the point at the end where she seems like a very disillusioned character who might just be willing to shoot anybody. Takes a lot of damage. Sometimes they'll talk about protagonists that don't take much damage. She takes damage, like, immediately in this,
Great.
And keeps going, So, interesting characters that do have, like, changes in their personality, have arcs. They're, like, this is kind of important in the modern era to explain to people that, like, the character arcs and the acts and everything are there. And make sense. They have mini arcs and everything. And does a really good job of representing the show while also expanding a little bit of the lore to make it more comprehensible. Like, there was stuff that they talked about in this that I thought were interesting ideas about, like, why the war happens or why the bombs fall, and who was aware of it and who might not have been, that I think add to the storyline more than detract from it. I had watched the Halo series, and when I watched the Halo series, I think my biggest problem was, like, it does a bad job of really getting to the part of the Halo itself.
Yeah.
Why
is it named Halo?
Why is it named Halo? Yeah, if you were just watching this, like, why is it named Halo? Slight spoiler. You don't even get to Halo until, like, the last 2 episodes of Season 2. Like,
that's a bit of a long intro.
It's a long introduction, and in the meantime, they're, like, talking about the colonies themselves, and like, the interpersonal, like, political stuff that's going on behind the scenes. The Flood doesn't get introduced till, the tail end of Season 2. I understand that you want a slow burn, but at the same time, these are kind of important things you kind of want to set up early to get people interested in the main meat of it. They don't spend any time mincing around, really, when it comes to Fallout. They explain very early on that there's the wasteland, there's the vaults, your Vault Dweller gets out into the wasteland and starts running into problems in Episode 1. Your ghoul is, you see, before and after the war in Episode 1. You understand what Maximus wants in Episode... like, they get Rubber Hits the Road, and then they just expand upon that in every single episode. which is a very good job. Overall, I think if you were looking at a good way to do video game adaptation, I haven't seen The Last of Us, but I have heard that that's very good. I think that there's a perfectly fine way to do it. Interactive to non-interactive medium is a hard one. If the interactive thing was kind of part and parcel, so you have to adapt it, not a one-for-one, but I think they did a good job of making it a Fallout TV show, rather than try to just shoehorn in the game to a different medium. Like, they really built the story to be in its new format, in its new genre.
That's good, then.
Yeah. I don't necessarily want the properties to try to follow the games exactly.
Right. That would be a little boring for those of us who have played the games.
Yeah, because you've played the games. So you know what happens in the game. You know what happens in the game. But at the same time, I also don't want it to be so esoteric that I don't even know, it doesn't even feel like the show is part of the world. And I think that's what Halo kind of ran into, which is that, like, for most of the time, except when Master Chief is on screen, I didn't necessarily even recognize it as like, Halo, as, like, what the whole theme of it is. But no, the Fallout television show does a really good job of explaining those themes, doing an original story with original characters, but also representing very well all of the factions that are in it, and how they interact with each other, and explaining to people who are not familiar what the lore and the history of it is, through the eyes of the characters that you're following. I think that they also do a good job of making them, what do I want to say? They're not... Likeable, but they're not squeaky clean heroes. They're a little morally gray, and sometimes they do things where you have to wonder, why did you do that on first glance? Because they're living in a wasteland, and they have to make some difficult choices. So you have to kind of, like, suss out why they do certain things.
Yeah.
It makes sense if you're familiar with the world, but if you're not, you kind of they have to justify it. They usually do a good job of justifying it. I'd say Fallout, as the television series, did a really good job. Really looking forward to Season 2. I guess it's already been greenlit, because it got so much good press. Looking forward to seeing, really looking forward, because I kind of, after seeing the very last scene that they showed, it's like, I kind of think I know what they're going to work on for a
now you gotta find out in Season 2.
Now I gotta find out in Season 2. I kind of have an idea of where they're going with at least one branch of the storyline. But yeah, I guess I would ask folks out there, if you saw the Fallout television series, what did you think of it? And if you saw, like, Last of Us or Halo or any of the other, like, television adaptations of video games, like, what did you think of them, and what do you think works and doesn't work? Because Halo wasn't a total disaster, but boy, I felt like I could constantly see a better show that they could have made out of it, because of the way it was framed. Let us know what kind of adaptations for video games you like to see, and if you hold out any hope for other properties that might go down this route, what you'd like to see in those. Leave a note in the comments down below.
Yes, notes. Music notes preferred.
Music notes, yeah. Just do a musical composition. We love those. So, Alex, during the time frame when I was out of power, I had very limited options when it came to playing stuff, but one thing I did do was play some game demos.
Some people might ask how you played anything without power.
Called a generator.
Good use of it.
Limited generator power to play demos. So I talked a little bit about Prince of Persia, Two Crowns, but one of the other ones that I played while I was at it was one where I've played the game before, in its entirety, twice, but I thought that I would play the demo just to see what the demo was like. And the demo I'm speaking about is Thief, the Lockdown. I've played the 2016 Thief a couple times. I like it a lot, but I had never actually played the demo. Well, spoiler alert, the demo is basically just the first level of the game. There's nothing really this special about it. It's basically just the first level of the game where you're in the lockdown and you have to go through it. So that's it. And it got me to thinking about the limitations of game demos, but also what you really want them to achieve. I think demos need to be able to explain the mechanics of the game pretty well. So in this, it did a fine job.
There are a bunch of things demos should ideally do.
Yes.
And one of the most important ones, I think, is explaining how to play the game.
Yes, and making it accessible enough so that you can do so. Because I have seen a few other examples where I might understand the mechanics, but you made it very complicated. Another one that I just tried the other day was called Our Adventuring Guild, and I tried the demo for that. And what I found was that there was just a lot of exposition, and they tried to throw a lot of mechanics at me very quickly. Like, what happens is that every time they introduce something, there were like 3 or 4 of those like frames that come up that like go over like the intricacies of like, when this happens, you can do this action and this tab over to the next screen. And
some games like to really front load you. I personally, I don't like when a game's like, here's an exposition dump that's more information about this game than you're going to need right now when you're trying to just learn how to play the basics.
Right, and so there are like scenes between each one of those conflicts, because it's kind of a tactics-based grid combat kind of game, where they'll go into this big exposition of just text, and then the other person says a bunch of text, and they're trying to, like, introduce all these characters, and they get to the town and everything. It's like, okay, I didn't need that. I really, I want to know how to play the game. I want the story to be introduced. Like, I like the idea of introducing the story. You do not have to explain the entirety of it. I need the basics. Like, what is the storyline going to be? What are the themes of the game? Like, I want to kind of get a good representation of what this world looks like, and how it feels, like, aesthetically, and just a basic idea of what the story is going to present. I do not need to know the backstories of every character in the game, or even half of them. I don't need to know it, not important right now. The point is that I want to be engaged enough that I want to try picking up the full game. The other thing that I'd ask for is that it alludes to larger things, but it doesn't necessarily show them. Because, for instance, going back to Thief, one of the things that just playing the lockdown doesn't really do is explain to you that there's a much larger hub area of this game that interconnects multiple missions. And the only way that they really allude to that is when you get to the clock tower and look out over the city and go, oh, I guess there's a city there. But, you don't really get the impression that that might even be explorable, because their individual mission structure belies that. So I think that there's just a few things that demos really have to hit on. And I'm trying to think if there's, like, a good example of a demo that really does this. Probably the best one is probably Nimrod's, right? Like, I think...
Yeah, Nimrod's had a really good demo.
Yeah, because...
Did you play 20 hours of it?
I played over 10. 12 or 13.
And the thing about that was it introduced the game to you, and it was such a simple game.
Yeah.
That had a lot of complexity that you could add to it, and a lot of different ways to play it, that... The core loop was explained and super easy to understand, and then it's just alterations of that core loop because it is a Vampire Survivors like.
Right.
Or whatever we're calling that genre.
Bullet Heavens? I think we're calling it Bullet Heavens, yeah.
It's a very simple premise with a lot of ability to customize it and change it and make each run feel very different.
Yes.
But... the demo gave you pretty much everything you needed to learn the game in the core, and got you into the gameplay fast so that you could go, yeah, this is good. This feels nice,
Yeah, they introduced the basic mechanics of the game very quickly, which it
as opposed to when you were doing Next Fest, what was the Space Trucker one? Whatever that one was called?
Oh,
Star Trucker?
Yeah, Star Trucker.
And that one was like,
We played Star Trek.
Oh, driving. Oh, now you have to fix all the things in your, like, the first thing you do isn't even driving it. It's actually fixing a leak in your hull.
I have to go outside the truck, and I have to fix a patch in my truck, and then get back into the truck.
So instead of front-loading it with something fun or interesting, they front-loaded it with going, here are some survival mechanics you're going to need in your trucking game.
Yeah, can you imagine how much more engaging it would have been if they just start you out on essentially the space trek where you're just driving the truck? Like, the first scene is where you're just driving the truck in somewhere, and so now you're like, oh, okay, so now you get used to the truck controls immediately. That would have been helpful.
Now, on the other side, I know we've talked about these demos before. You did try the demo for Pacific Drive.
I did. I did.
Did you think the intro to it was pretty solid?
The thing about it is that I think that they did a pretty good job of introducing the game. And one of the reasons why they did a good job of it was because you start off with just the driving part. Like, they start you off and you're driving in the car. And you're going into this zone that they're basically saying, turn back now. And you're going in, and stuff that becomes more and more paranormal is happening. So, when I was talking about that checklist, what have they done? Well, they're introducing the story, and they're presenting themes. And they're doing that really, really quickly, like, right out of the gate.
Yeah.
And you know that you're going to be in the car. Yeah.
And they're very strong themes, too.
Yes, they are. And you also get the idea that you're going to be in this car. That this is a central mechanic of the game, is being in this car. It also does a good job of alluding to larger things. Because you get this impression that there's much larger stuff going on. There's giant, there's the giant sky beams in the sky that are coming down on you. There are all these creatures, these mechanical creatures that are around that you don't understand at the beginning. Storms that are...
I will say...
Yeah.
I didn't play the demo, but I did buy it. And I have played it like 12 hours, Pacific Drive.
Okay, right.
They introduced their core mechanics really quick. The driving, and then after you get sucked through the rift or whatever it is, all the finding the stuff mechanics and putting the tire on the car and filling up the gas, all of that stuff that they did is really indicative of the game itself.
Right.
And so I think for them, they did a really good job, like, being like, here's the premise, here's here's like your core gameplay loop.
Yes.
And like, this is the stuff you're gonna get. And it was interesting, it was simple to understand, and got you right into the thick of it, like right away with the driving. That was the first thing you did, and that's what you do most of the game. I think demos can be really good when they do things right. I think, as you were saying before, exposition, lore dumps, and stuff like that generally turn me off with a demo.
Yeah,
I don't need all the backstory for your game world at the front of your game. Introduce it to me slowly.
Right, exactly. Pacific Drive actually does do a good job of that too, because it's all on the CB. Like, it's just all on the radio as you're driving.
You don't have to read it all. You do have stuff you can read.
Yep. Yeah.
But the people that are interacting with the NPCs that you never see on the CB are talking to you and to each other and kind of alluding to things that have happened.
Right.
But it's done fairly well. The voice acting is really good.
Yeah. No, the voice acting is really good. I was impressed with its presentation value. The place where Pacific Drive lost me was really in the way it frames its like mission design. Where if something goes wrong...
Fine.
Yeah.
I think, especially because you can actually go into the settings and make it so that like you don't lose all your stuff if you fail a mission.
You can?
Yeah.
Oh.
You can make it so that if you die, you don't lose your shit.
Oh shit, that would have changed everything for me.
Yeah.
I wish they had told me that. I wish they had told me that.
You would still have to repair your car.
Right. That's fine.
But you wouldn't lose anything. Like there's a couple different sliders for that. Either you lose all your stuff as normal, or you don't lose crafted items, for instance.
Okay.
Or the other one is that you just lose nothing.
Yeah.
And then even if you do lose stuff, or if you get your car destroyed and you die or whatever like that, you can go back into that same zone you were in and find the remnant of your remnant. So you can find the car's ghost essentially and loot it.
Oh, gotcha. So that would have been good to know.
Yeah, I figured if you had known that, you wouldn't have complained so heavily about that one thing.
I wouldn't have complained so heavily about it. Why didn't you just tell me about the slider, damn it? I probably would have gotten into...
Okay, here's another thing demos need. Demos need to have making sure you can go in there and change settings and check settings. For instance, this case, difficulty. I'm not sure if the demo had difficulty sliders. That could have been an oversight.
I don't know.
I would have looked. I have looked since I have the game. But being able to change your settings is super important.
Yes.
I've played a number of demos now, and just not even demo set. The settings for the game, for some reason, default to like 4K.
Okay, yeah.
And I'm like, why are you setting this game in 4K? First of all, set it in 1080p if you're going to set it at a default. But also, like, can you not just have it set to native settings for your resolution on your desktop? Because that's not hard. And I don't want to... I always go in, the first things I do when I start up any game or any demo is I go in to the settings for display and graphics and change them. I turn off motion blur. I make sure it's got full screen or borderless full screen, preferably. I turn off my FPS limit because my computer doesn't. My computer goes, fuck you, I can handle it.
Right.
And I generally try to max the settings out if I can because, again, my computer can handle that.
Yeah, a couple of things that I usually do in a demo, first of all, is I usually play with the sound settings because a lot of times the music is just blaring.
Way too loud.
Way too loud. Way over anything else that's sound related. And then the other thing that I usually do is check on controls because sometimes they will support controllers, sometimes they will not, and I want to know if they have it. I once saw, I don't even remember what game it was, but I saw one game where they were like, controllers are recommended, and also it's partial controller support. So, like, I'm like, okay, this is a fascinating combination of thoughts.
All right then.
Okay.
I prefer also when games let you rebind the controls. Like remapping is super accessibility friendly, but also just really nice. I did that earlier for a game that had WASD as use for like arrow functionality.
Sure.
But it didn't have to be, so I also have WASD for movement as normal. But then anything that I would need, like a left or right, up or down arrow, I just bound to the arrow keys because they're separate bindings.
Oh, certainly, yeah.
Because my brain does not go up down as WD or WS.
WS, yeah.
So it takes me longer to go WASD up down, up left down right, instead of using actual arrow keys, because I go, oh yes, the up arrow is up, down arrow is down. That's much more native to my brain. So I rebound that to a game and tried that, and it's like, all right, I have to remember that that's what I did, but it's much faster. Right,
exactly. I think that Pacific Drive even, I think, did a pretty good job of explaining the mechanics, because I understood the mechanics itself. The one problem I had is I just didn't like the structure of it, like I was mentioning before. But to be honest with you, it presented an honest depiction of what the game was. And I can't really cite it for not doing that, because I think that I understood what the game was. It just wasn't really appealing.
And then your biggest complaint was that if you die, you lose all the things in that run.
Yeah.
And that is the thing that you can change. So I feel like if you were to play it again, knowing that, you'd probably enjoy it a bit more.
Because I was liking it.
Yeah.
Honestly, I was having fun.
Pacific Drive specifically makes me go, I want more survival games that have cars I can mod.
Yeah. Having that old station wagon was great. I love that part. But, I think it presented itself honestly, and that is important, that, a demo presents the game in an honest depiction of what you're going to get with the full game. Just in general, you don't want to have these, refunded constantly because it's not what the demo showed you.
Right, and I'd rather have a demo than buy a game and have to refund it.
Right, exactly. And I'm pretty sure the devs would also appreciate that, because it doesn't look good.
Personally, I know people are like, oh, you can't really judge a game if you haven't played it for that long. It's like, yes, I can. I can play a game for 20 minutes and go, I'm really not vibing with the controls or how this is presenting itself.
Yeah,
I tried I don't remember the name of it. But I tried another game that sounded interesting, looked interesting because I was watching someone else do a trial of it, and I was like, that looks interesting. They've got a demo, cool. I'll try it. So this was the other day. I downloaded the demo. I think I maybe tried it for like 10-15 minutes. I was like, I don't like any of these controls. This is weird. And I'm like, I would buy it, I would play it for like 20 minutes, get frustrated, and probably just never play it again. So I'm just like, nah.
Nah. Yeah, no, that's the thing, is that getting the mechanics down and being able to present them to people and make them understand it and make it feel good when you're playing it is such a big component. Probably the most important one of demos. One example of a game that I did play the demo of and then bought, so and feel like the finished game is very representative of it, was On Guard. On Guard is a really fun game that focuses on this combat, and it's in a very bright, colorful setting, and has a very tongue-in-cheek kind of sense of humor, and has really fun combat where you get to like kick buckets onto people's heads and like kick them into stuff. That demo of like that first level is indicative of the entirety of the game. I played 3 or 4 of the levels from that. And it's the same thing. So it did a good job of explaining what the game's going to be, and presenting what the mechanics are in the game. I pretty much have encountered the same kind of mechanics. So good job on them. I have also experienced a few where I'm like, what is going on? Is this going to be like what the larger game was? I had tried like the revamp that they did of System Shock as the demo, where they do the medical bay part, and I felt claustrophobic through a lot of that. But then when I think about it, it's like, what if, like, having played a little bit of like System Shock 2 and, you know, other games from like Irrational and stuff, I know that this will open up at some point, but the demo's not really presenting that to me right now. It feels very claustrophobic the way that it's giving it to me. And if I just got a taste of like something a little larger in scope, where it didn't feel so hemmed in, I probably would be vibing with it. But as it stands, I'm going through these narrow corridors, down these back alleys, going down stuff, and it just feels just way too much like a labyrinthine maze that's tricky to get around. So I haven't picked that up. You know, your demos are going to do a good job if they can accurately represent the game, but mostly it's that. I need to be able to understand what the themes of the game are. I need to understand some of the story, but it just doesn't have to be very heavy.
And you need to be able to be familiar with how the gameplay's core like loop is going to be, I feel.
That's the thing. Like you're saying, if you can't explain the core mechanics of the game with a demo, then it's not really going to work. You have to do that.
Right, which is why I say again, Pacific Drive did a great job.
Yes.
And I was like, from seeing it played and then you talking about it, I was like, I feel like I'll enjoy this game. I'll try it, even though I have to buy it, because I couldn't. They took the demo away before I got a chance to play it, even though I had downloaded it.
Right.
So I was like,
Right.
But on the other side of that, I tried Everspace 2, because I had Everspace.
Mm-hmm.
And Everspace 2 has a demo. And I was like, all right, cool. I understood how everything worked.
Yes.
And I was like, I don't know if this is something I would stick with, though. So I still have the demo, and I put a little bit of time into it.
Right.
But I was like, I would have to play more of the demo to really see how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Be able to want to buy it.
Yeah, that's the other thing, too, that's a little tricky with... Because Everspace 2 is a very open world sort of game for space. I feel like in open world, like sandboxy kind of games, it's hard to do demos in general, because you have to present a very small portion of it, but you're presenting a small portion of a game that's meant to be very expansive in the way it's represented. But you can still do that well. Like, the demo gives you like the beginning of the story and lets you do a bunch of things and learn how the combat and all the flight mechanics and all that stuff work, and that's important. Yeah.
I don't need the giant open world to be like, oh, I like how big the world is and all the places I can go. Because if I don't vibe with those core mechanics of flying around and shooting stuff and how that works, then I'm not going to enjoy it when it opens up so I can do it in more places.
Right, exactly.
On the side note to that, not a demo, but games that also have free trials, like MMOs, for instance, I appreciate because then I can try the game for a bit before I feel like spending any money on it. And for MMOs, generally, spending money is more of an investment than just buying it once, typically.
Yes.
So I enjoy that. I've like tried a bunch of them over the years, and I'm like, I don't think I like this one enough to want to pay for it. For instance, Final Fantasy 14 Reborn, or whatever the hell they've named it now. In theory, yeah, it sounds neat, but then in practice, I did not like how it was set up, and I was like,
Sure. For MMOs especially, just the way that it's framed, a trial period is the only thing you can do. Because I don't see how a demo of an MMO is going to work. Like, that would be
a demo.
A demo? Yeah. Perfect.
When are you going to try Warcraft again?
I don't know.
And speaking of demos, if you would like a demo of our podcast, of this show, just go and play the first, 3 minutes again.
Yeah, exactly.
Do it again. Just listen to it again. It's fine.
Yeah.
Go ahead. It's a demo.
Take any episode that we've done and listen to the first 3 minutes. That's like a demo of the show. It's good. Yeah. Okay. Go and do that now. And leave your comments down below about what demos you enjoyed.
Or what demos you thought did a poor job of explaining the game.
Those are more interesting, I know. So KlaytonCalix gave us an article that he suggested we talk about. And it is an odd one. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. I did not read it, so I'm glad you have looked at it, because I went,
this.
Huh?
Yeah, so basically, former Blizzard president, this is the headline from PC Gamer, former Blizzard president suggests you should be able to leave a $10 or $20 tip for the devs because some games are that special. Okay. Sure.
How do I know it goes to the dev? How do I know it doesn't go to the president of the company?
This is where I get a little confused, because I get the feeling like if I left a tip, it wouldn't really necessarily go to the dev team. It would go to the company, and if I were to give it to Blizzard, it would probably just go to the bonuses for the executives.
Sure. My other point there is if the game is that special and that good, maybe you should pay your devs more.
Yes. Also do that. Do that.
I don't think the presidents of your companies need the millions and millions of dollars they get. Please pay them less and pay your game developers more for the amazing work they do. They don't need tips. They need salaries that are indicative of the things they are able to do. Things.
That's true. And also, I will mention that when I think about tipping, I think about tipping like servers, people that are actually doing the work itself directly.
So, I mean, the devs are the ones doing the work at that point. So, not quite that, but when typically America's really... I don't know if other places tip as much as we do, but typically you tip on a service rendered, not a product bought.
Yeah, that's true.
So you would tip your hairdresser if you had hair. Sorry. I tip my barber, for instance. I had servers at restaurants, people who make your food. If you get a tattoo, you should 100% tip your tattoo artist if you ever want to have them do work for you again. Your bartenders, you tip people who do service for you. It doesn't matter what that service is, but you would generally tip service for that kind. You have renders, service, you pay them for the service, and then you go, you did a great job, here's more money, I appreciate you. Because that's just how our culture is over here in America. So
it does work differently in other places because they just pay people more.
So the idea of tipping devs for the games that they make, and don't get me wrong, devs, you definitely deserve the money for the games you make. You guys do a lot of work. And I'm there's way more involved in there, the crunch and all the bullshit you have to deal with. So you deserve your paychecks, but I don't think asking consumers to tip for it is really great.
Well, and so this article is very interesting because the president that they're talking to is Mike Ibarra, the former Blizzard president, and the way he presents it makes me think that this would not be implemented very well the way we would want it. Ibarra cited that games like Horizon Zero Dawn, God of War, Red Dead Redemption 2, Elden Ring, and Baldur's Gate 3 are examples of games worth tipping. I know $70 is already a lot, Ibarra added, but it's just an option at the end of the game I wish I had at times. Some games are that special. I just think it's interesting that the ones that he mentioned are like more mainstream games and not like indie titles that like have smaller dev groups.
Well, just the indie titles usually have places you can go and donate to them.
PC Gamer does also mention in this, I like how they put this, but having it go to a big pool that splits up as bonuses for the dev team sounds great to me, but I'm the sort of guy who likes the idea of residuals for developers and performers, avoiding laying off half your staff to appease shareholders, not buying Gearbox for $1.3 billion, then selling it off for less than half that 3 years later. You know, wacky bleeding heart idealism that's just out of fashion with the captains of this industry. And it's like, yeah.
Very accurate. You know, for the amount of money these games cost to make, especially with some of the games that he listed there, what, Horizon, for instance, probably multi-million-dollar project.
Oh, yeah.
God of War, definitely multi-million-dollar project, hundreds of millions probably.
Baldur's Gate 3 costs like something, like $100 million or something. Like, it costs money.
So for the cost of the games that you're doing, if you're asking the consumer to then tip because you've spent $200 million to make a game and you feel like the developers need to get tips, honestly, pay them more. 100%.
Yeah.
Pay your devs more. Yeah. And if you want to give them that extra money from consumers, go, we're going to charge $70 for this game and $10 per purchase is going to the devs. Like extra as tips. So do something like that. Or have it as an option. Maybe you have a DLC where you go, hey, here is a developer's pack. You get a couple extra things in this pack, but also here's maybe cosmetics. Here's a couple other cosmetics we made, but all the money from this proceed goes to like tipping the devs.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind it at all if I knew that it was going directly to them. Like that you could cite that it goes to the actual team that developed it and not to administration. Some of the things that I was thinking about was that they kind of have packs like this that they could utilize for that reason. There's like the soundtracks, like the art books, the additional content packs, your skins, your clothing, you were mentioning cosmetics before, emotes that are like additional, like they're a few dollars or something like that for those. I don't see why those couldn't be utilized in that way. It feels like that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do. You get a little something, but it's not really out of the way of the development team or the publisher to put those out there. And you could market it as purchasing this is money that goes directly to the dev team. And you could just say that. Boom, you're done. Easy enough. And especially on these large projects, I think that's really useful. But I get the feeling like if any of the, like if EA or Blizzard or any of these companies, Ubisoft, were to like say, here's the tip jar on Steam, the dev team's not getting that. I don't see the dev team getting
I feel like they've received backlash a crazy amount because, EA, you want tip jar for your devs? And you go, how much is your president making? Yeah. Maybe you could take $1 million cut.
Can the CEO of the company tip the dev team?
Yeah.
Could you do that? That would be great.
Yeah.
I think that the idea of tipping, the way that it's being presented here, is bad. The general idea of getting more money to the dev teams that build games is good, but I don't. I do not trust a Mike Ibarra or anyone else that's in upper management at these companies to implement it. So there's money in those games. I think a lot of the game companies are doing pretty well. Maybe some of that money can go to the people that made it.
You would think, but what do we know?
What do we know? We're not like economic experts. We're not big city lawyers over here. We don't really know the ins and outs of stuff. But it does seem like, if you're able to pay your executives hundreds of millions of dollars, but you feel like the devs should make more than what they do on the grind, that there seems to... I feel like there's a way to make this work.
Yeah,
somehow.
There is, and they just don't want to do it.
No.
Same reason that my boss makes 3-figure salaries.
You make a
What am I
5-figure
thinking?
salary.
6. I'm thinking 6.
Oh, okay. I was gonna sit there like, I think I know what you're talking about, but... Because
I don't know what I'm talking about.
I'm like, you probably make a 5, I make a 5, so that's fine. 6 is good. 6 is great, if you can get it. 7 would be something.
Yeah. Anyways.
Some people make 9. There's where the problem ends up being. But anyway, if you have some ideas on how you'd like to implement a tipping system for devs and how you think that it would actually work correctly, you can let us know in the comments down below. I'm just...
Kickstarters.
Yeah, Kickstarters, yeah, or people go indie, you know?
Yeah.
Indie devs.
Well.
I guess that works too, but you can let us know in the comments down below. I express a certain level of doubt when it comes to how it would be implemented by...
We're pressing X pretty hard right now.
Yes, we absolutely are. That's another game that they'd probably think we need to tip on, too.
Yeah.
L.A. Noire. Mm-hmm.
Hit F to pay respects, no. Hit F to pay your devs.
There you go. Yeah.
There's the title.
Hit F to pay devs. With that being said, I think we can finally finish up this episode of Total Pebble Knockdown. Make sure to hit the tip button. We don't have one, but if we had one, it would be great.
Make sure to subscribe.
Yeah, just subscribe. That costs nothing. Do that.
Better than a tip.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Did you know that we're actually up to 300 subscribers? We hit 300.
We're like 307. I forgot to mention that when I saw it.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, we're at 300. Woo! Hey.
200 more subscribers and we can actually monetize. That would be crazy.
Oh, is it 500? Yeah,
Yeah.
500's the good... That's a sweet spot.
Help us get to 500 so we can monetize, and those ads will actually make us money.
Yeah, that'd be great. We'd appreciate that.
That'd be so good.
Mm-hmm. Where else could they find information about Total Pebble Knockdown, Alex?
TotalPebbleKnockdown.com. Go visit our new website, because the old one is dead.
It's the same web address, though, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's why I said the same address.
Yeah, just in case people are like going, wait, did I hear that wrong? Is this one of those?
No.
Is this one of those Mandela effects that I've been hearing about before? But anyway, yeah, you can check us out there. Also check us out on our Patreon, and you can get some additional footage that we don't usually release to the general population, as well as early releases of all the stuff we do over here. And feel free to check us out on every podcast app known to mankind. And also make sure to check us out on various social media platforms. We're on quite a few, probably going to be trying a few more later. But anyway, I am at Titanium.
I am at EXP Limited, and the show is at Pebble Knockdown.
That one. So check us out over there. And with that being said, I think that we can tip our hats to each other, but I'm the only one with a hat.
I tip my tip.
All right. Just remember, everybody, that war never changes. Nor does this podcast.
Oh, it might be changing.
Oh, that's true.
Oh Lord, he changing.
Oh, God. Well, now we're demonetized again. Thanks. Have a lovely day, everybody. We will talk to you next time on Total Pebble Knockdown. Goodbye for now.
Bye for now.